Hello, welcome to my channel. I've noticed a lot of videos lately where people are deciding to leave their corporate jobs behind. They realize there's got to be something more out there in life. And that's going to be, I guess, today's topic of my video. I think some people, they've toiled away at a job for many years where there's a lot of rigidness and, rule following and dealing with HR and having to follow policies. And yes, following the rules is very important, but some places take it like a little too far. And, that does carry over even into what I do now. I worked for a corporate company for many years, but one of the things is just documenting everything. Don't throw anything away. Make notes of every little thing you do, and then getting questioned later about it. And so I feel like that's carried over into every job that I've had since, where I am so detailed about everything I do because I think it's going to get brought up later by HR, where they'll question me and I've got to have proof and I've got to prove my case. And it can be very anxiety inducing to deal with those situations. Since today I'm basically talking about people that are deciding to leave their job, I wanted to talk about the time that I left my corporate job because I just want to talk about the reality of what I ended up doing when I left my corporate job. Any of my friends know it, they know the whole story anyway, so it's not like a secret. But I can understand why some of the stuff that happened might be something that you might not share with others if it happened to you. So before I get into it, I do want to talk about the fact that I used to live in another state. And so when I moved to Seattle, obviously the minimum wage in Seattle is over $20. I came from a state that had much lower pay. So it was interesting for me to come from a state where what I was considered a high paying job, knowing that I could just move to Seattle and work a minimum wage job, just some job that you don't even really care about. You work with high schoolers. And it was interesting to find out that all the work and effort and going to college and all of that, whatever salary that ended up being in the state I lived in, I could have just moved to Seattle and worked a minimum wage job with absolutely no training, no education, and got paid just the same. Makes you think. So when I actually did leave a corporate job, my whole thing is I probably went through what would be considered an early midlife crisis, in that I decided that I wanted to go back to school. That even though I had already gone to college and had a degree, I decided that I would just quit my full-time job and re-enroll in school and try to train in something completely brand new. Was that even a wise decision? Well, at the time, I thought it was. I do have to say, at the job I was at, I was in a position that I was constantly being told that I had reached the max of my salary range and that there was no way they would ever give me another raise because I had worked there for 5 years and I had reached the highest max that they could possibly offer me unless I switched to another position within the company, that I had gone as high as I could possibly go. So that's another reason why it's like, well, what are my options here? Quit the job basically and find another one? That's what it seemed like. Keep doing what I was doing, keep getting paid what I was getting paid, knowing there was nothing to ever work up to. That's not very motivating. Basically all I had to do was show up every day, not even work hard, and I'd just get the same thing I was always paid. There were no challenges. Some people obviously don't want challenges. They have enough challenges in their life. Am I right? But at that point, I had money saved up. So I thought, okay, well, I can go to school, pay for the school, and then I could also, I had an apartment, so I could also pay for rent with the money that I had saved up, which means by the time I was done with school, I'd really only set aside maybe a year and a half to 2 years for the program I was interested in attending, that I had enough money to basically pay for the school and have my rent paid for that amount of time, which meant, of course, at some point the money's going to run out. At some point I have to go back to work. And there's all the things that goes on when you're in school. I mean, besides paying rent, you've got to eat every day. Maybe you've got phone bill, internet bill, anything like that, the electric bill, things like that have to be paid. Where I was living walking distance from the school. So I really didn't have to worry about like driving to school every day and paying for gas or paying for a bus pass or anything like that. But I had it pretty much in my mind all planned out. And this was my plan of quitting my 9-to-5 corporate job that I couldn't stand anymore. And I just wanted to move on to something new. Let's talk about what really happened, because obviously life happens. At some point in time, I was not finished with school, but it became apparent that I was going to have to get some sort of income coming in because I was in school all day. That made it difficult to actually go and get a job. So I would have to look for night jobs, something to do, nights, weekends, and some of that led to me finding janitorial positions. So basically working in the middle of the night, cleaning office buildings, that sort of thing. Some of the places I cleaned was like a medical facility, like the individual rooms where they would do medical procedures, and basically go in like general cleaning, like take out the trash, mop the floor, easy stuff, right? Some of the janitorial stuff besides taking out the garbage is cleaning bathrooms. So of course there comes a point where it's like, okay, so you quit your big time high paying corporate job to clean bathrooms in the middle of the night. That's kind of like the reaction or the reality of what I was doing. Because even though there for a while I was, not having to work at all because I had everything all paid off, I was still going to school every day. So it's not like I was just sitting around doing nothing. But when it came down to it, now I'm doing school and now I'm like working because I have to, like, money's running out. I've got to, basically like keep paying the bills before I graduate school, and then I can go out and find another new job. But, it comes down to, as far as my friends knew, they think, so you're just a janitor? Like, why would you give up your career just to be a janitor? And so this is why I say maybe it sounds embarrassing. The things you do that you toil away at, that you're getting paid to do. Like, we're not there for the fun of it. I'm not mopping floors because I love mopping floors. But anyways, this was what I call my early midlife crisis, because I basically gave up my entire career to go back to school, and then I ended up like basically working as a janitor. Now, obviously that didn't last forever. I did eventually move on to other things, but it's kind of like those are the things that really make you appreciate what you have in life, because what I had before, the corporate world, dressing up nice and fancy every day, is totally different from basically coming home covered in filth and you want to just like burn your clothes when you're done, scrubbing toilets all night long. But I'm just telling you my experience of what it's like when you have it in your head that, hey, I'm going to like give up my corporate 9 to 5. It's too much stress for me. But maybe weigh out your options of what you do intend to do to make some money and to make a living if you're not going to be working that fancy executive job anymore. Are you going to end up being, scrubbing toilets for the rest of your life? Are you going to actually find a laid back job that any random teenager that hasn't even graduated high school yet can do? I mean, these are just things that might cross your mind before you actually put in your 2 weeks notice.